Hi, Miaomiao. So we've got more essays from you. Great. It's nice to see you working so hard. Let's take a look at what you've written, okay? Alrighty, so the bar chart compares the difference of sales between Intel and AMD in France in 2017. So know that, okay? In January, sales of Intel were 50,000, almost twice the figure for AMD. Again, know that. Between February and March, the figures for Intel continued increasing to just under 100,000, while sales of AMD peaked at around 120,000, no S here, before falling significantly to about 40,000, no S, in March. The figures for sales of Intel and AMD were similar in April, but there was a different trend for these two factories. Well, manufacturers would be better, in May. Intel rose dramatically up to approximately 80,000, whereas AMD fell slightly to just 24,000. Sales of Intel reached a peak at around 130,000, no S, in June without any data provided for AMD. Okay. In contrast, in July, the figure for Intel plunged to just around 25,000, while the figure for AMD reached almost the same level of the February figure. Okay. In August, it was a considerable increase in Intel's figures, I would have preferred here, to about 70,000, but AMD experienced a downward trend, falling to just under 50,000. Intel and AMD had similar numbers of sales in September and October with figures of around 75,000. In November, there was a gradual rise in Intel's sales to 110,000, while sales of AMD reached its lowest point, their lowest point, with only about 5,000, which isn't really true because in June there were no sales at all, okay? Keep that in mind. The figure for Intel remained relatively constant in December, but the figure for AMD increased rapidly by 35,000. I can't really say rapidly because you just told me the previous month, so it increased dramatically. Overall, the sales of Intel were better than those of AMD in most of 2017. The sales for Intel and AMD saw a fluctuating trend during the period. Okay, so Miaomiao, you know what's happened here? Too much information. The bar chart shows 24 pieces of information, and you mentioned every single one of them. It's too much. Okay. You're supposed to highlight the important ones, and you're supposed to, group things together. So this is really very important to be able to know what's a key piece of information and what is just a detail and what really is not worth discussing. Okay. So for me, this was a little too overanalyzed, and I'm sure that if you did a word count, you'll see also this is actually really far over the word minimum of 150. Typically a good length for a task one is somewhere maybe up to 200 words, but I would avoid going any more than that because then you run this risk of giving too much information, which I think is what you have done here. Okay, however, your vocabulary was really good. You didn't understand that you're not supposed to put an article in front of Intel and in front of AMD, but on the whole, the grammar was okay. It was pretty good. Your vocabulary was nice, so you had a nice variety of expressions, and I liked that. But again, for me, the biggest problem was just too much information, okay? Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, fine. Advertising. Let's see what you did here. Okay, it is becoming common that marketing and advertising are unethical and unacceptable. Wait, where am I? Here we go. It is, I was reading this, sorry. It is becoming common that marketing and advertising have increasingly played, not really. It is becoming common that marketing and advertising have an increasingly significant role in our daily lives. You could have said that. That would have been okay. Some people believe that some advertisements demonstrated their products and let's try this again. Some people believe that some advertisements demonstrate their products in an unethical and unacceptable way. And personally, I strongly agree. This essay will show points and prove arguments by using examples from the University of Queensland and Toyota. Fine. Firstly, some advertisements have adopted some unacceptable strategies to promote their products. Fast food restaurants such as McDonald's normally depict the experience without that of having a burger and fries with families in a local chain restaurant. Let's try this again. Fast food restaurants such as McDonald's normally depict that the experience of having a burger and fries with family in the local chain restaurants would enhance a person's happiness. Okay, so again I had to make some small changes, but okay, fine. In fact, consuming junk food that contains a high calorie content can lead people to lead people to becoming obese, or can lead people to becoming obese easily. As a result, it is impossible for people to be happy and satisfied without good health. For example, recent empirical research by University of Queensland showed that the majority of people cannot accept that fast food advertising such as pizza and burgers attempted to mislead the public to consume these products by linking them to fulfillment. Okay, therefore it is conclusively clear that some methods that advertisers use to chase more profits are by far not acceptable by the society. Okay, let me think about this for a second. Okay, so I went through this paragraph a couple of times looking through it just to see basically the organization of your paragraph. So essentially you have this, which is your topic sentence, that's fine. Then you give me your main idea about McDonald's, and then you develop it a little more with an example, and then you go on. And so I was just a little confused, and then it's like you went on again with this thing about eating, and you give another example. So I think it might have just been a little too, how can I say this? It's like you kept talking about the same thing over and over. That's kind of how I felt like. So it was a paragraph that was unnecessarily long, and I felt like you kind of talked about the same thing more than once. That was the impression I got, because you had this thing about McDonald's and happiness, and then you went on. So I'm not really clear here, neither about the order nor about the organization of the paragraph. So that was my issue with it, and why I actually went through it a couple of times. I'd like you to try to stick to the acronym from the course a little more. All right, it really makes it easy to write and certainly easy to read, okay? So keep that in mind when you rewrite this essay. All right, moving on to the next body paragraph. Secondly, some unethical methods used in some advertising have proved to be harmful to society. Some advertisers tend, with no S, to use people with mental health problems as an example to persuade audiences to believe the good quality of their products, which results in people living with mental health disorders and their families being very frustrated and depressed. Okay, let's see, for example, in 2016, Toyota was heavily criticized, because you're telling me when, for its unethical advertisement of a new type of car, because this car giant, you could have just said, used the concepts of suicide and the mental disorders such as depression to convince consumers how the non-toxic fuel employed in this new car was not harmful to humans and the environment. Okay, I think I know where you're going with this, but I'm not 100% clear. Thus, the methods that advertisers used without moral concern negatively impacted the individual and society as a whole. Okay, I think I know what you're trying to say. Okay, it's a little bit difficult to kind of swallow as an example, but fine. Another thing that you could have used, which might have been a little easier, was you could have talked about like diet pills and like a lot of these weight loss remedies, which are unethical and immoral because they target people with low self-esteem, or, you know, perhaps they give new ideas to people with anorexia, and so that's unethical. We kind of feed into this insecurity in the public, or advertisers do this. They feed into people's insecurity, therefore, you know, making people more depressed, making people spend lots of money on things that don't work, and also potentially harming people with eating disorders. And that was one way you could have developed this, okay? In conclusion, I completely agree that today some advertisers ignore the ethics and social responsibility on purpose and only focus on enhancing the business profitability. All right, that was nice and clear. So the order is fine. Like I said, I had a problem here with this. I didn't really understand. I felt like you wanted the reader to make a mental leap here. And this, I just didn't really understand the organization of your paragraph. I found it kind of hard to follow, and I didn't really think it had a clear progression. So you've got some corrections now to make for us. So correct these essays, add to the error correction list, and write your new essays for us. So we'll be here waiting for them. Good luck, and I'm looking forward to your next essays.